Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Age Better, where each week we take a deep dive into all the ways we can feel better, look better, live better, and age better. I'm your host, Barbara Hannah Grufferman. I love having genuine badass women on this show. Today, we have a truly inspiring guest, Melissa Davey. At the age of 73, Melissa is a testament to the fact that it's never too late to follow your dreams. After a really great and successful career in corporate America, where she championed the rights of disabled individuals and spearheaded national disability management programs, Melissa shifted gears to chase a new dream, filmmaking. Her journey into this creative field began at the age of 65. And since then, she has produced the acclaimed documentary Beyond 60, which showcases the vibrant lives of women over 60. And another film just recently came out, which she's going to tell us all about. Listen, I've really got to tell you, I absolutely love this woman. She is the real deal. And if you are thinking about pivoting to a new gig, maybe something entirely different than what you're currently doing, of course, you might be filled with fear, right? Of course, it's a big deal. But listening to Melissa Davey will give you the moxie to really make it happen. So pop in those earbuds and get ready to get inspired to maybe go after your own next chapter. Stay tuned.
Many of us have those stubborn pounds that seem impossible to lose, no matter how good we eat or how hard we work out. My solution is PlushCare. PlushCare is a leading telehealth provider with doctors who are there for you day and night to partner with you in your weight loss journey. They can prescribe FDA-approved weight loss medications like Wegovy and Zepbound for those who qualify. Plus, they accept most insurance plans. To get started, visit plushcare.com/weightloss. That's plushcare.com/weightloss.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Baker's, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Baker's worth it every time. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Age Better. I'm so happy to welcome Melissa Davey to the show. Hello, Melissa. Welcome to Age Better.
Hello. Hi. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
We were just talking before we hit that record button about our hair. And I said, okay, you're a curly girl too. I'm a curly girl. You can't really see because I have this big thing on my head. But yes, I'm a curly girl. What's your story? I want to know, what do you use? And like, when did you become a curly girl? And then I'll tell you my story.
Well, now, just to preface everything, I'm almost 74 years old. So for that long, I have had curly hair, but I hid it probably from the time I was about 6. I always wanted straight hair.
We all did.
And I went through the 60s where we were ironing hair. You know, it was amazing.
Do you remember the concentrated orange juice cans? Do you remember doing that?
Yes.
When we take out both ends of the, the top and the bottom, and then stick the, the bobby pins to, oh my gosh, what were we thinking?
So crazy.
I know. And then blow frying. And then when the blow dryer came out.
It was terrible for your hair.
Terrible.
But as a corporate person, I always wanted to look coiffed. It was like I was acting in my role there. It was just after I left that job and my hairdresser started saying, you should really try curly. I said, oh, no. I can't let it go curly. It'll look really weird. And, it won't go where I want it to go. And she's like, believe me. So it took her a few years, but it was about a year ago when she finally said, just do it. So she let me walk out of there with this wild mass of curls, and I wasn't quite sure how I felt about it. But then I started to get used to it, and I look at myself, and this is who I am. This is my hair.
This is your hair. I love it. I love your hair like that. It looks great. And for those of you watching on YouTube, you will see what I'm talking about. Your hair looks great. And we have like about the same length now. My hair was longer. And then little by little, I've been making it shorter and shorter. And now it's like that.
Right.
And again, you can't really, I'll kind of pull it out a little bit from behind my headset here.
Yeah.
But my curly girl journey, well, like you, my whole life, and I was blow drying it. And now what the founder of the Divashan products and the, Diva Girl products call blow frying it for
Blow
decades,
frying.
right? And then when I turned 50, that was my whole aha moment year. And I changed everything I did, including how I did my hair. And that's when I started letting it go, what it really is, which is curly.
Yeah.
And I've never looked back. I don't even know what I look like with like blow dried straight hair. I don't know what I would look like. Isn't that funny?
I don't either. Yeah. And it's awesome and it's freeing and you can literally walk out of the shower and just let it air dry and kind of scrunch it a little bit.
Yeah, I've been encouraging women in many different ways for years since I started writing books and, doing these videos and the like. I've really encouraged women to kind of let their hair be what it was meant to be. So we're doing that again today, everyone. Let your hair be what it was meant to be. So fun. Okay, Melissa, enough about the hair. Let's get to your incredible story, your great journey from like the corporate world to filmmaking and what made you do that. We have a lot of things to talk about, so I really want to get into it. I mean, you're a badass, and I'm so happy to have you on the show and talking about what a badass you are. So your early career, you were deeply involved in advocacy. I mean, really doing good work on behalf of people and legal services for disabled children and individuals, right? What drew you to that field initially, and how has that experience helped you in your new field of filmmaking?
Okay. Well, and this is way, way back. We're talking about 1970s. And I joined legal services. I've always have been very interested in equality for everybody and helping the underdog. A lot of my early work, I thought I was going to be a teacher, and then I was like, it just didn't fit me. And I got involved in legal services, which was one of the best 12 years that I've ever spent with an incredible organization of attorneys and paralegals that did phenomenal work. And so I learned about disability there, and I learned about education laws for children who needed special education in the school system. And the schools really weren't following it then. So it was doing a lot of advocacy for those individual children to get them what they needed. And that was just always my goal, is to help people who were less advantaged get something that they deserved and that they should have. So it just made sense to me. And I love storytelling. So from the beginning of time, I've liked to listen to other people's stories and create stories. And when you're advocating for somebody, you're creating a story about them, and you're telling that story to an administrative level individual, trying to get the benefits that you need for them. So it just filled myself with good feelings around being able to tell a story in a way that would help somebody and really listen to somebody and hear how difficult their lives might be and what they might need, and kind of opening my mind to trying to put myself in that position and wondering what it would be like if I didn't have somebody help me, if I was on the other side of the table. So that became my focus for a very, very long time. And I became an expert in the field of Social Security disability law and within that practice. And then I was recruited to the for-profit world. So I'm leaving the nonprofit world to the for-profit world to build Social Security disability, kind of like a little mini law firm within this risk management company, which was national in scope. So to build that to offer to the insurance carriers that were representing and covering individuals who were disabled. And some of them become disabled to the point where they can't go back to work. And that's when Social Security would come in. And we would represent those individuals before the Social Security Administration. And that had been one of my areas of expertise in the nonprofit world. So I brought that into the for-profit world. And again, what was I doing in that job? Even though I was creating the business and running the business, I had done about 1,000 hearings for people with disabilities And that, again, you're telling the story of the individual, and you're gathering the evidence you need to tell the story in a way that's going to get them the benefits that they deserve. So again, listening to stories and telling stories. Started when I was very young, and I was, did that through, I think I left, the calendar starts getting fuzzy at this point.
Oh, does it ever?
But I left my job about 8 years ago. So I left the corporate world 8 years ago to do my next gig, which is what I'm doing now.
So it sounds like the skills that you were really developing during all of those years working in that field, both not-for-profit and then for-profit, really did inform your ability to kind of carry those skills over to filmmaking, because that is telling a story on a different kind of a grander scale in a different way, right?
Absolutely. And and it's been such a stable point in my life, that knowing that, okay, I can listen to a story and then I can relate it again to someone else in a way that's necessary at the moment. But I'm just invested in people's stories. I love to hear them. It doesn't matter whether I'm making a film or not. I'm still seeking out people's stories and listening to them, because every time I hear a story, I might challenge the way I think about something. They may bring up a subject or an issue that I feel strongly about, and potentially they could change the way that I think about that issue. Maybe not, but at least I'm getting this kind of worldwide view of whatever it is that we're talking about, and hopefully challenging myself to listen to what they're saying and see how it resonates with me. And did I learn something new? And I would tell you that at least 50% of the time when I'm talking with somebody, I learn something new, at least 50%.
That's incredible. I mean, when you think about especially what's going on in the world today and how we're really not stopping and paying attention to what other opinions might be, what the other side is saying, what their perspective is. And that's a skill set that I think I wish more of us did have and use to be more empathetic and to really understand the other side, other positions.
Yeah. And I have used that lately with, the political world the way it is. I have gotten a little bit better in at least listening to people that don't believe things that I believe.
Not always easy.
And it's not easy, but when you can come to understand why somebody feels the way they do, you're able to empathize with them at a certain level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us, what was that moment in time? There had to have been some moment in your life that you said, I am ready to pivot over from this corporate world to the more creative world of filmmaking. What was that moment?
Yeah.
And I'm sure it wasn't easy, although maybe it was actually. You tell us. And maybe a little scary, or maybe not. Tell us, Melissa, what happened? When did this pop into your head? And what was the next step you took?
Well, there were a series of things that came together. The first one being, I looked at the calendar and I realized I was 65 years old, and I was sitting at this desk that I'd been at for more than 2 decades, loving my job, no reason to leave. I could have stayed till I was 90. There was no ageism within the company, which was wonderful. But looking at that calendar and saying, oh my gosh, how all of a sudden did I become 65? And it just started to, I don't know, it was like a reel going through my head. Like, what are you doing? Are you going to stay here? Are you going to stay another? And then the CEO, that I reported to the CEO, and he came to me and he said, oh, we're being bought out again by another private equity firm. And I'd been through that rodeo a few times, so I knew what it entailed. And I knew that they were going to ask me to sign up for another 5 years. So that's happening while I'm sitting there at 65 saying, oh, what am I doing? What am I doing? So that prompted me to say, do I really want to be sitting here at 70 doing the same thing? And the answer was no. You've done it. You've done it well. You're good at it. You can do it in your sleep. You like it. That's okay. But what haven't you done? So I was asking myself, what haven't you done that you've really always kind of fantasized about. And I started making a list. And on that list were crazy things like play a saxophone. And I say that's crazy because I don't read music, but I would love to play the saxophone.
And you still can.
You know, of all the instruments, I just love that instrument. Mm-hmm. But then I thought, well, how reasonable is it to think that I can learn to read music plus play the thing in a short period of time? I wanted something that I could jump into right away. So I moved that down on the list. And then the usuals. Well, I could write a book or have a little store with beautiful art items. And I was like, I don't think so. And film, you need to know that film, since I was 9 years old, has always been a fantasy. And I say a fantasy because I went to the movies a lot as a youngster and all through my life. And I used to be so curious about how did they make that look so real? And how did they do this? Gee, I wish I could be on the set with a director and see what they're doing. So that one kept coming up on the list. And then one more thing happened. I was at work. I was in DC for a congressional meeting about Social Security, and which I've been to dozens of those over the decades. And I was sitting there, it was early in the morning, and I did my little piece. And I remember sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, this is like Groundhog Day. We never get moving forward on any of these issues. And it just was like, it hit me like, I've had it with this. I don't want to do this part anymore. And I leaned over to a friend. I said, I'm going home early. I'm not going to stay for the day. So I came back up. I'm in Pennsylvania. And I decided not to go back to work that day. And instead, I called a friend, a younger friend, who said to me, my gosh, I haven't seen you in ages. Yeah, come on over. Let's have late lunch, and then we'll go pick up her daughter from school and take her up to the horse barn where she worked after school. And I said, oh, that sounds like heaven right now. So that's what we did. We picked up Grace, we took her up the dirt road, and as we were driving, my friend said, I think they're making a movie over there. Look over there. So I looked as we drove by, and I thought, oh, sure enough, looks like a movie set. And we came back and we stopped. We're on a dirt road in the middle of the woods in Chester County, Pennsylvania. And I said, I bet I know who it is. And she was like, oh, come on. How could you know who it is? Like, well, look where we are. Chester County, PA. Looks kind of spooky. I bet it's M. Night Shyamalan.
Oh, my God.
Because this is where he lives and this is where he makes his crazy movies. So I looked it up on the phone and pulled up his website, and a picture of where we were sitting came up. And it said, M. Night Shyamalan making a micro-budget film in Chester County, Pennsylvania. And I said, well, that's him.
Melissa, that's really incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah, but it gets even weirder.
Keep going.
It gets weirder. On the screen, there's a little red button that says Charity Buzz. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. So I hit it. Boom. Picture of his face. It's Win a Day on the Set with M. Night Shyamalan. So my friend is like, oh, you have to do this. So I started betting. All of the money was going to go to his education fund. He had a foundation which does amazing things in education worldwide. So I was interested in that so I could justify if I'm going to start putting money into this. Okay, it's going to a good cause. So I started bidding, and it seemed to be neck and neck with this dentist in New Jersey. He wanted it, I wanted it, and for 2 weeks we bid, and at the end I won. I won the day on the set.
Crazy.
Yeah. It's nuts.
What happened?
And within
what happened?
2 weeks after that, after signing all the NDAs, I was on the set with M. Night Shyamalan when he was making his movie, The Visit. And the day of the filming was at the Amtrak station, South 30th Street station in Philadelphia. And it said, report there at 7 a.m., plan on 10 hours, blah, blah, blah. So I went there thinking, oh, he's going to sit me in a chair and I'm going to see what they do. This is going to be great. So as soon as I got there, it was boom. I was behind the camera with him all day. I was with all the crew. I was able to ask questions. He was asking me what I thought about how he was setting a shot. It was incredible. Like I had not been that excited about anything in a very, very long time. And I realized that, my God, this is fascinating. And so we sat together at lunch for a break. And he said, what do you do? And he's younger, and I was trying to, and he's done nothing but make films his whole life. So I was trying to explain the risk management, insurance, Social Security, and he kind of glazed over. And he looked at me and he goes, what do you really want to do? And I said, I want your job. I said, I want your job. And he said, oh, well, you better hurry up. And he was kidding, but it hit me, that gut punch that I felt physically. I felt it. And I thought, he's absolutely right. If I'm going to do anything different, I need to hurry up. I'm 65 at the time. I was like, if I want to make a film, I guess I better do it now. So the rest of the day went on, and it was fabulous, wonderful. Came home late at night, walked in the door, and my husband said, so how was it? Because he knew how excited I was. I said, it was beyond anything that I imagined it would be. And tomorrow I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to make a movie. So
wow. All I can say is wow. Wow. And what was your husband's reaction?
Well, I think he said, wow. And he just kind of looked at me a little curiously, like,
are you sure about this?
What is going on? Yeah. And so he said, okay. And he just sort of left it at that. And I went to bed and I stayed up half the night because I was thinking. I was thinking, well, what could I do? What kind of a film? Now that I've said it out loud, I have to do this.
Isn't that something how that works?
Made a commitment. Yeah. Yes. So the next day I went in to the CEO and I said, well, just FYI, I'm going to give a long notice because I have to mentor somebody to run this division that I built for the company. But I am leaving. I'm not going to do the 5-year sign up. And he said, okay, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to make a movie. And he looked, and he'd known me for years. And he just said, that sounds about right. So I went back to work, but I immediately began planning what I was going to do for a film and how I was going to do it. So I had the time and the luxury of being paid while I was developing this so that when I walked out the door, it was already in progress. And I'm so thankful for having that time.
That was the perfect setup, Melissa. That was the perfect setup.
Yeah.
So your documentary, your first, I believe your first, Beyond 60, wonderful film.
Yes.
It's been a significant success and has resonated with many, of course, especially in my age group.
Yes.
What inspired you to have that be your very first documentary film?
Well, as soon as I said I was going to be a filmmaker, I thought, oh man, that's a big word, filmmaker. And what does it really mean? And what would I be able to do that makes sense for me? And it was, well, right away, documentary is a story. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to write a script. I'm not going to try to figure out how to write a script and do that type of film. But a documentary made sense because it seemed like the most simple way to step out, because I understand how to listen to people's stories and tell their stories. Maybe it was in a different genre at work, but I thought, well, I think I could do this. And then I thought, well, what kind of stories would I want to tell? And immediately it came to me, well, it would make sense to talk about people like me, people that are over the age of 60 that are continuing to do
amazing phenomenal things.
Yeah. And they have wonderful life stories, backstories that led them there. And I knew immediately I didn't want it to be a celebrity. Like people started saying, oh, you should call Oprah. I'm like, no, Oprah's out there. People know about her. They've heard her story. I want to talk about the everyday woman, the woman that you would walk past on the street and not notice them at all. They've become invisible in the media because they're a certain age. And there's some positives to that. I like being a little bit invisible because I can be louder and just do whatever the heck I want to do. And nobody
I told you you're a badass.
So it just made sense.
It made sense.
Why don't I do stories?
It made sense.
Yeah.
So how many women do
Yeah.
you focus on in this film Beyond 60?
In the film, there are 9 women from all around the country with completely different stories, but they talk about their resilience and they talked about why they're still relevant and what they're doing and what their plans are after what it is that they're doing now. And some of them were as old as 87.
Yeah, it was so great. I mean, since I'm so focused on this age group and so focused on really life after 50, now life after 60 and all its different aspects and the richness of it all, it was very intriguing to me, of course, that you focused on women over 60 in your first film. And like I said, it is an excellent film. How did you find these women? What was your creative process?
Well, the creative process was, how am I going to find the women?
And how did you do that?
I started cold calls. I started calling everybody I knew. If you know anybody with an interesting story, so in that year, while it was probably about a 9-month period, I talked to almost 100 women on the telephone. I would call them and I'd listen to their story. I would tell them what I was doing, ask them if they were interested. But I kept coming back to the same 9 as my favorite picks for a host of different reasons, but it just worked. And each one of the people that I asked, they knew that I was a new filmmaker. They knew that I didn't know really what I was doing, but they all said yes. And I thought, to me, that was incredible. That was women supporting women, older women supporting older women, and women who just have this understanding that stories can help change the world. And they wanted to be a part of that. So it was an interesting process to find them.
Yeah, they're just all wonderful. Each woman is unique. Now, you transitioned from the corporate world, as you explained, to filmmaking. And even though you did explain how storytelling has been a part of your life and your work for decades, but still, this is an entirely different medium. Was it challenging for you?
Sure. Yes.
And did you have mentors? Like, how did you actually figure it out? Did you go to a class in filmmaking?
No.
While,
No.
in the evening after you were done working at your company?
No.
How did this happen? Give us some insight.
I wanted to fast track it. I mean, I thought about going to school, but I thought, well, once again, that's going to just take up more time.
Yeah,
So
you had to get to it.
I wanted to just get in. Yes, I wanted to get in the nitty gritty. So I'm a builder of operations. I've done it. I know what it takes to build something that I don't know much about. And the thing of it is, you just need to find people who are smarter than you are. And you need to surround yourself. I always did that in business throughout my careers, is bring in people that are smarter than I am so that we have a well-rounded group of individuals that can move forward and develop whatever it is we need to develop. So I started reaching out to people in the film world in the Philadelphia area. And I was asking to be introduced to a production company that may be interested in hearing what I have to say. So I was introduced to this young woman's, at the time, boyfriend, now husband. And she said, well, he is part owner in a production company in Philly. I'm sure that he'll meet with you and probably tell you where you should be going. Oh, okay. So that was the beginning. And he and his partners liked the idea of Beyond 60 so much that they said, well, why don't we do it with you? We have the cameras, we have the sound, we have all of that expertise, and you are the producer, director, person that's coming in with this idea. We will work together. So that's what we did for almost 3 years. That's how long it took from the very beginning to the very end. Yep. And the crew, we put this crew together and they would come with me wherever we were going to film the individual women. And then we would come back and I'd sit with the editor and do the editing. And we just back and forth until we got the whole thing stitched together. And so they were truly, these young people in their late 20s into their mid 30s were my mentors, showing me the ropes.
But
you
you're right. What you said, you understood what it what it takes to really pull together a group, to really go from one point to another. I mean, you've done this in your previous work life. So
Yes.
it really, you were uniquely qualified to take this step and make this pivot.
Yeah.
You really were.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, it
Still
is
challenging,
an interesting
of course.
thing to, of course.
Tell me something.
But
I want to
mean,
know. I want to picture this.
Yeah.
Where did that film premiere? Was there a premiere? And what did you feel like when it
Beyond
premiered?
60.
Tell us about that moment, about that evening, whatever it was.
In Los Angeles, at the Los Angeles Women's International Film Festival. And that was the premiere. And so I flew out there. Honestly, I felt nauseous the day before because I had never seen this film on a jumbo screen inside of a movie theater. And when I got into the movie theater that next day and I looked and I was like, oh my God, how is this? Is it really going to work? You know, the editors kept it, don't worry about it. It'll all fit. I said, are you sure? I'd seen it on a pretty big screen, but not like in a movie theater. So lots of people that I knew from LA, because I actually had an office in LA for 10 years, came. People that I hadn't seen in a long time came to support me. People that were just at the festival. There were just all these people sitting in this auditorium seating for the film. And a couple of them called me back and said, come sit with us. And honest to God, I couldn't do it. I had to go down front and sit by myself.
I understand.
And wait for this to happen.
Yes. You needed the space around you to really process what was going on. Completely understandable. Big moment.
Yeah, it was wild. It was really wild. And then when people laughed, I thought they should laugh, or if you heard or whatever, people were doing that. So I thought, they're getting it. They're taking in the stories and they like it. And so then there was a standing ovation. And
yay. I'm giving you an ovation now. Yay.
Yeah. Thank you.
It was so, I was getting all excited just listening to you retell that moment in time.
I can still feel it.
Of course you can. And I'm like living vicariously right now through you. All right. I want to talk for a minute about people listening in right now might be saying, I want to do that too. I've been working in the same job for decades. Love it, love it, love it.
Yes.
But hey, I'm 65 or I'm 50, whatever it is. And I still have this other thing I want to do. Maybe it's clearer to the people listening. Maybe it's like in the beginning for you, wasn't so clear. Maybe it's the saxophone. Maybe it's the book. We don't know.
Right.
You ended up figuring that out, which is wonderful. But what tips do you want to give to people, women in midlife, who really want to pursue this dream? What tips do you want to give them?
The first thing is make a list. I think everybody should always have a list that is ongoing, and you can cross things off as time goes on.
That's what I do.
But to focus in on the two things maybe that are the most intriguing to you. And then once you figure that out, reach out to people. Reach out to somebody like me who's done it. There are a ton of people who have done this already, who have switched careers, midlife, whatever, to try something new. And everybody has a different system for doing that. But getting the support of somebody who might be able to introduce you to someone else is big, is really big. So there are so many coaches out there and life coaches, people that will Reveal Talks is a group that a friend of mine is working with. And she set up this program where she goes in and just talks real short Reveal Talks to figure out what it is that you need to focus on and where you might need to go. So there are people out there like that can help
kind of shape that dream so that you can really dig in deep. And also, I want to point out that I think a critical key is to be fearless, because let's say you have a great idea, whether it's for something creative like a movie or a book or a new business or a not-for-profit, you fill in the blank. But if you're fearful, you won't take the next step. You'll stop right there.
Right.
I kind of had that experience when I was also in the corporate world. And then I turned 50 and I had my aha moment, had gone through menopause and the like. And I said, I need a book for this. So I went out to try to find that book. And that book at that time did not exist. And so I said, well, I'm going to write that book. Now, what did I know about writing a book? I could have been too afraid and said to myself, hey, who's going to want to listen to me? I don't know anything about writing a book, and anyway, I didn't let that happen. Lucky for me, I continued on the path and what became fearless. And I think I really encourage all of you listening in to add that element to your kind of toolkit as well.
Right. Because fear is real.
Fear is real.
I mean, we all fear things.
Yeah.
I mean, was I fearful? Sure. I was a little fearful, but not as fearful as maybe I would have been 40 years ago. Because I have already tried things and failed at things over and over and over in my life.
And that's a good thing, actually. Right. All the experts say it's a good thing if you've tried and you have failed. You've learned, hopefully.
Exactly. And it's always, every time I've failed, and when I say fail, I mean, I tried to put something together. It didn't work. So I had to go back and regroup. And that happens over and over in your life. If you look back at the times that, gee whiz, that didn't work out, but I learned from it. So the next time I did something similar to that, I started at point B instead of point A because it worked better. Right. And fear is something that you can manage. And fear is a good thing to test on a regular basis. When you get that pit in your stomach and you're like, ooh, this is really scary, but I'm going to do it anyway because I really do believe I'm not going to die and I will get to the other side. And when you do come through the other side, you're like, oh, why was I so nervous about that? But it's just part of life.
Yeah. And a little mind trick from me too is like, what's the worst that could happen? And very often it's like, you're right, you're not going to die. The worst that could happen is somebody said, maybe the person you're trying to sell your idea to or get published or whatever, the person says no. And then you just find another way in.
The next person.
And you just keep on going.
And
it's
the
critical.
no's get easier. Yeah. But people need to reach out to other people for support. And there's so many women offering that type of service, or maybe it's just a friend. It depends upon who your friend group is. You can get a lot out of just sitting down and talking with someone, and they give you one simple idea that you haven't thought of. And that simple idea can be the opening for what it is that you want to do.
Yeah, I call that my kitchen cabinet. It's my group of women friends, my kitchen cabinet, who I will kind of throw things out at them. And I certainly did that in the beginning with different ideas. And it really helped me a great deal to go in the right direction, take the right path. Now, you just came out with a second film, a second documentary. Tell us about that, Climbing into Life. Tell us about that.
Yeah. I finished it March 30th. We finished
Congratulations.
Editing and got it. Thank you. Thank you. That took a year and 11 months. So I'm getting shorter in the time it takes to do it, which
you're
is
more
a good
of a pro
thing.
now. You're not a rookie
and
anymore.
This time I did not bring on a production company. I just hired people as I needed them. And this film is unusual. The woman is incredible. Her name is Dierdre Wolownick, and she is the oldest woman to climb El Capitan in Yosemite National Park. And there's all kinds of backstories, but the big one is her son is Alex Honnold, who was in the film Free Solo.
Loved that film. I absolutely loved that film.
Wasn't it amazing?
I remember watching it. I remember watching, like I couldn't even sit. I had to stand.
I know.
Toward the end.
I know.
I couldn't sit. I was like so nervous. And fabulous.
You're just, So this is his mother.
Amazing.
And she was never an athlete.
Wow.
Never. Until she was 60. Never. So everything she did was academic. She's incredible. Like, totally incredible. She's a painter, artist. She is a musician. She plays, I don't know how many instruments. 6. She is a writer. She's published many books. She's a professor. She's unbelievable.
And she's how old, Melissa?
She's now 72.
72. Wow.
Yeah. But she was watching her son do all these crazy things, and she was a little concerned, and she felt a little bit of distance between them and wanted to know what he was doing. So she said, could you show me how this climbing stuff works? So he took her to a climbing gym and she got the bug. And now she's the oldest woman to climb El Cap. And I got to go out there to Yosemite with her and hired a climbing videographer to go up with her. And it was just fantastic. And then we spent the rest of the time in her home doing her, the early part of her life story, which is just fascinating.
I have not yet seen that movie.
Yeah.
Tell us, where can the audience see both of these movies?
Okay. Beyond 60 is easy to get. It's streaming on almost every streaming channel except for Netflix. Mm-hmm. So you can just go in and put it in the search bar, Beyond 60, spell out 60, and you'll be able to get it there. Climbing into Life is just finished, and we're just submitting to film festivals. So it's been submitted, and we're waiting on those that will accept it, and that's where it will premiere, at one of these film festivals. So if people stay in touch with me, they can follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Of course. And everyone, of course, I will have all of that information and your website and how they can follow you and connect with you, and certainly information about both movies in the show notes. Yeah. Easy, just click and you'll get to where you want to go. All that information will be
awesome.
There. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that'll be, first in film festivals. And then while I'm doing that, I'm looking for distribution the same way that I distributed Beyond 60. Mm-hmm.
I wonder if this will be an easier path for you because you already have a great movie under your belt.
I hope so. But the business has gotten a little tough.
Every business has gotten a little tough, but yes.
Independent filmmakers are everywhere now, and great films are being made by thousands of them. And it's harder and harder to get good distribution deals, but you're fearless. I imagine it will be a little
You're fearless
easier.
And you're a badass. So you're going to make this happen. No question. Yeah. So looking ahead.
It'll happen.
What are you thinking? Like, all right, you have 2. Now you're going to start doing another one. Maybe you already have. What are some future projects that you're thinking about? Can you share that? Or?
Well, I am seriously interested in writing a book. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of simmering, and I'm writing down notes in a journal about that. But I'm also thinking about doing a series of short films around women at work. And so I'm playing with that idea right now. And I have this picture in my head of close-ups of their hands doing whatever it is that they do. Say they're a surgeon, or say they bake bread or whatever, but their hands doing what they do and talking about their work, and then talking about their age and why they're still working.
So it sounds like you want to stay in the world, the space of midlife women. It sounds like going forward. I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Yay. We want to keep you in this space right here, Melissa.
Yeah.
This was such a great conversation. You truly are amazing. So inspirational, motivational. Thank you for sharing your creative process and how you got from point A to point B. So appreciate that. And before we let you go and before we wind down this conversation, are there any takeaways you want to make sure that the Age Better audience remembers from this chat today?
I want people to always take detours. I want people to think about how they operate in their day-to-day life. And are they the kind of person that always goes to the same restaurant, or always goes to the same store, or always drives to work the same way? I am a strong proponent of taking detours and taking a look at what's around that bend that you come to, because honestly, it can change your life. It can change your thinking. It can just change the way you operate. And it can put you in a space that opens you up to think about what you want to be doing next, and not feeling like you're stuck on a path and that this is my only path. It might be a good path. I've been on them, and it might be a great path, but there are other paths out there for you. And if you don't take any detours, you might not find them.
Thank you for that. Very inspirational. Melissa, thank you for joining me today. And I hope you'll be back to talk about all the successes for your next film and then whatever you're working on after that. So appreciate it.
I would love that.
Thank you.
Would love it. Thanks so much.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode of Age Better Podcast, please do a few things. First, share it with all your friends and family. Then, subscribe to Age Better wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube, so you never miss a single episode. Finally, if you have ideas for topics you want me to cover in a future episode of Age Better, send an email to agebetterpodcast@gmail.com or reach out to me on social media. Until next time, remember this: we can't control getting older, but we can control how we do it. Talk to you soon. Age Better Podcast is a proud member of the Sound Advice Network. Sound Advice, women's voices amplified.